She walked out of the pack hall alone after his rejection. Minutes later, every head turned when the Alpha King arrived. Part 1. Nobody told Lena Caldwell that the night was going to change everything. That is probably the cruelest part of it, that she walked into that hall with absolutely zero warning. She had done her hair. She had picked out the only decent dress she owned, a dark green thing that her cousin had once called almost elegant, which at the time felt like a compliment, and now felt like a curse. She had stood in front of her cracked bathroom mirror for 12 whole minutes, trying to convince herself she was ready. She was not ready, but she went anyway, because Lena Caldwell was the kind of person who showed up even when every bone in her body told her to stay home and eat cold leftover rice in her kitchen. The great hall was packed. It always was on Revelation night. The whole pack turned out, every wolf, every ranked family, every eager face that had been waiting the entire year for the goddess to do what the goddess did: bond someone, name a mate, rearrange two people's lives without asking for their opinion first. The hall smelled like pine resin and something sweeter underneath it, something that Lena had never been able to name but which always made the back of her throat feel full. The torches along the walls threw yellow light that made everyone look softer than they actually were. Wolves she had known her whole life looked almost kind in that light. She tried not to notice that. She found a spot near the back. This was on purpose. The back of any room is a safer place to be when you are not sure what is coming. You can see everything, and if something goes badly, you have a shorter distance to the door. Lena had done a lot of mental calculations like this over the years. It was a habit she had picked up somewhere around age 15 and had never been able to put down. She watched the front of the hall. The alpha of their pack, a large man named Brannick, who had the presence of a thundercloud and roughly the same warmth, was standing at the raised dais with his wife at his side. His wife was beautiful in that deliberate way that powerful women learn to be. Like beauty is a language she had decided to become fluent in, purely out of strategy. She caught Lena's eye once across the room and looked away. Lena looked away first, actually. That part is important. The ceremony started. The goddess moves through these things in ways that cannot be explained to people who have never felt it. A warmth that begins at the center of the chest and spreads like something being poured. One by one, wolves found their mates. Young ones mostly. A few older ones who had given up hoping and had the most volcanic reactions, the kind that involved crying in front of everyone and not being embarrassed about it at all. Lena watched it all from the back, with her arms crossed and her mouth in a neutral line that she was working very hard to maintain. And then, the warmth hit her chest like a fist through velvet. She knew it immediately. Anyone who tells you they did not know the instant it happened is lying. You know, your ribs know, your blood knows, before your brain even has time to form a thought about it. The knowledge just arrives, fully assembled, the way bad news always does. Her eyes found him across the room without being told to. Drake Weston. Alpha heir. The kind of man that rooms reorganize themselves around. She had known his face for 10 years. Had watched him move through this pack like he had been built for it, which he probably had, because some people are built for places, and some people just happen to be in them. Drake was built for this hall, for this pack, for the easy authority of it, and the way everyone stepped back half a step when he entered a room. She had never spoken to him once, not because she was afraid of him, exactly, more because she understood geography. Some distances exist not because of space but because of everything that fills the space. He was already looking at her. For exactly 1 second, she let herself believe it was the good kind of looking, the kind the goddess puts in a person's eyes when a bond ignites. She had seen that look 20 minutes ago, on the face of a 60-year-old wolf who had spent 4 decades not expecting anything, and it had been the most undone expression she had ever seen on a human face. She had filed that image carefully. She had wanted to remember what hope looked like when it arrived, wearing somebody else's face. Drake's face did not look like that. His jaw went tight. That specific tightening of the jaw that means a man is deciding something, not feeling it. His eyes moved across her. Not cruelly, which almost would have been better, because cruelty at least implies you matter enough to be cruelty's target, but like he was doing arithmetic, like she was a problem. He took one step back, then another. And then, in a room full of 200 wolves, in a silence that had gone very specific and very total, he said it. I reject you. 3 words, said the way you would say the answer to a math problem, flat and final and already done with itself before the last syllable landed. The room held its breath. Lena stood there with the bond still warm in her chest, because that is the part no one ever tells you, the part that the stories always leave out. The bond does not break when he says those words. It just sits there, still alive, still insisting on itself in the way that inconvenient truths insist on themselves. You have to carry it out of the room yourself. The goddess gives you the feeling, and then leaves the rest entirely up to you. She took a breath. One long, quiet breath that she hoped no one could hear. And then Lena Caldwell did the only thing she had ever been any good at doing when the world handed her something unmanageable. She filed it. Deep in that interior drawer she had been building since she was 15, the one where she kept every too heavy thing she could not hold in her hands and could not put on the floor. The drawer was already crowded. It fit anyway. It always fit. She walked. Part 2. This is the part that people always get wrong when they imagine it later. They assume she ran, or that she stumbled, or that her eyes went wet, and her shoulders came up, and her whole body collapsed inward, the way people's bodies do when they take on something bigger than they were designed for. None of that happened. She walked, spine straight, heels on stone, one after the other, unhurried and deliberate, through the crowd that had done that thing crowds do, that silent parting, that instinctive step backward away from someone else's disaster, the animal knowledge of not wanting to be too close to whatever is happening. She looked at no one. This took a particular kind of discipline that she had had to practice, and she was very good at it by now. She pushed the hall's main door open. It was heavier than she expected. It always was. She had been pushing this door for 15 years, and it always surprised her. And then she was outside, and the cold hit her face, and she stopped. Just stopped. Outside the great hall, the territory dropped away into a wide stone courtyard that led to the tree line, and beyond that, the dark. The night was the kind of cold that does not apologize. Stars above the tree line, very white, very far away. The kind of sky that makes you feel both very small and strangely unlonely at the same time, because something that big cannot really be ignoring you on purpose. She stood on the top step. The bond was still doing that warm, terrible thing in her chest. She put one hand flat against her ribs, over where she felt it, and pressed. Not hard, just present, just here. Acknowledging it the way you acknowledge a thing you cannot fix yet. She was not going to cry out here on these steps. She had decided this with the full authority of someone who has made the same decision many times before, and has found that the deciding, the actual act of deciding, matters more than people think. You decide. The body obeys. Eventually. Not immediately, but eventually. She tilted her head back and looked at the stars. She was still standing exactly like that, head back, eyes up, one hand against her ribs, alone on the stone steps in a green dress that had been called almost elegant, when she heard the cars, 3 of them, black, arriving without announcement, headlights cutting the dark. The sound of them on the gravel was deliberate, quiet, the kind of quiet that expensive things move with. They pulled up to the base of the steps in a formation that was not accidental. Nothing about these vehicles was accidental. She understood that immediately. The way you understand that some things are put together by people who think about every detail before it happens. She lowered her head. The courtyard had begun to fill up again. People following her out, or pretending they had been coming out anyway, for air, for nothing particular. And now every face she could see had turned toward the cars with an expression she did not have a word for. Not fear, not excitement. Something between them, the specific human expression of being in the presence of something that outranks you in ways you can feel, but cannot explain. The middle car's door opened. Caius Varon stepped out. She had never seen him in person before. She had heard of him the way you hear of weather, as a fact, as a force, as something you factor into your plans even when it is not directly affecting you yet. Alpha King, the apex of everything the hierarchy built itself toward. 7 territories under one name, the kind of power that does not need to announce itself because the room announces it for him. He was tall. That was the first thing, the physical fact of him. Tall in the way that some wolves are tall, which is different from how regular people are tall. Something in the proportions that makes the space around them look arranged differently. He wore a dark coat that he had not bothered to button, which in the cold should have looked like a mistake, and instead looked like he had decided weather was beneath his attention. His eyes moved across the courtyard, scanning, taking inventory. The way a person looks at a space when they have learned, been trained, been hardened into the habit of, knowing every exit and every risk and every variable before they commit to being anywhere. And then his eyes stopped. On her. Lena, standing alone on the top step in a green dress, one hand still pressed against her own ribs, hair the wind had started to pull apart. Absolutely no reason in the world for the Alpha King's eyes to land on her and stay there. They stayed. Something moved through his face, not readable, not the open, unguarded thing she had watched on the 60-year-old wolf inside the hall. This man's face had been through enough to know how to keep itself very still. But something moved anyway, behind the eyes, which are always the last place anything can be fully controlled. She felt it in her chest before she understood it. The drawer inside her slammed shut. She thought, no, not tonight, not like this. Not standing here on steps that just watched me get rejected, not with everyone looking, not when I am barely holding this together by the thinnest thread, not now. She thought all of this in the approximately 2 seconds that it took him to start walking toward her. Part 3. He did not look at Brannick, who had come out of the hall with the rest of them, and was standing at the edge of the courtyard with the very contained energy of a man who has been caught off guard and is using his body to pretend he has not been. He did not look at Drake, who Lena could feel like a heat source somewhere to her left without looking at him. He did not look at the 200 wolves who had gone that particular kind of still that prey animals go when something at the top of the food chain moves. He walked toward Lena, across the stone, unhurried, like coordinates that were set before either of them was born. She did not move. This was partly dignity, and partly the fact that her legs had sent her brain a very clear message, which was, "We are not going anywhere. You figure it out." He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head up slightly to look at him, which she resented with a specific and immediate intensity that she noted and then set aside. He smelled like pine and cold air, and something underneath it that her wolf recognized and her brain had no vocabulary for yet. The whole courtyard was behind him. She could feel it without looking at it. 200 wolves, and every single one of them holding very still. His eyes were very dark. The kind of dark that in this torchlight looked almost black, though she suspected in daylight they would be some version of deep brown that was somehow more unsettling because more ordinary. There were lines around them. Not old lines, but lines put there by years of not sleeping enough and deciding things that affected too many people. She read all of this in a second because she was very good at reading faces. It was one of the skills she had developed out of pure survival, and his face said, "Been at the top of something brutal for a long time and am completely aware of what that has cost. I've been looking for you," he said. Not a greeting, not a question. Not the sort of thing you say to someone you have just seen for the first time from across a courtyard. A statement, a fact he had apparently been carrying and had decided, here, now, in front of everyone, to put down. Lena stared at him for a long moment. Inside her chest, the bond, the first one, Drake's, the one he had handed back 40 minutes ago and left her to carry, was doing something complicated. It was not disappearing. Nothing about this night was going to be that clean, but it had shifted, the way a room shifts when someone opens all the windows. Same room, same furniture, same 4 walls, something different moving through it now. "You have terrible timing," she said. Her voice came out level. She was very grateful for that. She had not been sure it would. Something happened at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile, the ghost of one, a twitch of expression that said, "I know. That is probably true, and also I am not sorry." Behind her, she heard someone in the crowd make a very small sound and then cut it off. She recognized the sound, actually. She had heard it before in other contexts. It was the sound of 200 people deciding at the same moment that they had somewhere else to be, or should at least give the impression of having somewhere else to be, or should at minimum stop staring, though not a single one of them was going to actually manage that last part. "You can't have been looking for me," she said. "You don't know me." "No," he said, "not yet." The two words landed in the space between them and just sat there. She looked at him for another long beat. Looked at this man who ran 7 territories, who had arrived in her pack's courtyard without sending notice ahead, who had walked past her alpha and her alpha's heir and 200 of her packmates and stopped in front of her. Lena Caldwell, nobody's daughter, back of the room girl, bearer of a freshly rejected bond, and said the thing he had said like it was just a fact. Like it was just the next thing. She thought about the drawer. She thought about all the things filed in it, pressing against the seams. She thought, "I cannot do this tonight. I do not have the room." She thought, "I am going to anyway." She did not say any of that. Instead, she turned and looked at his car. The middle one, still running, door still open, the warm interior visible. Warm, an actual physical warmth she could feel from where she stood, the contrast of it against the cold that had been biting at her since she walked out of the hall. She looked back at him. He waited. He was patient in the way that only people who have learned, or been forced to learn, that patience is the only kind of power worth anything are patient. Not aggressive, not pushing, just present, waiting for her to decide. She walked toward the car. Part 4. He got in behind her. The door closed. The courtyard disappeared behind tinted glass. She sat on one side of the back seat. He sat on the other. Between them, space that neither of them filled with sound for almost 2 full minutes, which is a very long time to sit in silence next to someone who has just rearranged the architecture of your night. The car moved. She watched the territory go past through the window. Trees she knew, roads she had driven herself 100 times, the edge of the lake where the ice would be another month away at least. Ordinary things, sliding past in the dark, going on being ordinary while her life did something entirely extraordinary inside the vehicle she was sitting in. "You were not supposed to be here tonight," she said. Not accusatory, just factual. The king does not attend pack ceremonies without notice. "Correct," he said. She turned to look at him. He was looking at her already, which she had suspected but had been postponing confirming. "So why are you here?" He considered this for a moment, with the kind of deliberateness that said he had known the answer for a while and was deciding how to give it. "I had information," he said, "that my goddess-given mate was in this pack. I did not know the date. I did not know the ceremony. I arrived 3 days ago and have been waiting." 3 days. She processed this. 3 days meant he had been in her territory while she was doing ordinary things, buying groceries, arguing with her neighbor's dog through the fence, burning toast and eating it anyway because she was too tired to make more. He had been 3 days close, and she had had no idea. "That is either very romantic or very strange," she said. "Probably both," he said. She almost laughed. The almost surprised her, the almost of it, the way her chest nearly did the thing it does before laughter, and then thought better of it, not because nothing was funny, but because she was not sure she had earned laughter tonight yet. She was still carrying too much. She could feel the weight of the evening on the inside of her ribs pressing. "There were 2 bonds tonight," she said. "I know. You know what happened. I was there for the last part of it, yes." She looked back out the window. The lake was going past now, flat and dark and still. "I am not going to pretend that the first one did not happen," she said. "I am not asking you to. It is still there." She kept her eyes on the lake. "The rejection does not. It does not make it go away, not immediately. It takes time." "I know," he said. He said that with a specific weight that made her turn and look at him again. His face had done something. Not soft, exactly. She did not think this man's face was capable of full softness. There had been too much built over it over too many years. But something underneath the built parts had shifted, something that said, "This is not unfamiliar information to me." She did not ask about it. That was a different conversation. Tonight was full enough. "Where are we going?" she asked instead. "Wherever you want." She thought about her apartment, the cold leftover rice, the cracked mirror, the green dress that was almost elegant. She thought about the drawer and all its crowded contents and how full it was going to be tonight. "Take me somewhere warm," she said. "Yes," he said. Part 5. The place he took her was a house at the edge of the territory, one of the Packland properties, big and stone-built, the kind of building that had been around long enough to have opinions. The inside was warm. Someone had lit the fire in the main room, which meant he had arranged this in advance, which meant 3 days of waiting had included this. She stood in the middle of the room and looked at the fire and said nothing. He had his people. She had barely registered them until now, the men who had come with the cars, quiet and capable-looking, directed somewhere else in the building. She heard doors. Then nothing. He came and stood near the fire, not close to her, just in the same room near the warmth, letting the silence be what it was. "You are going to need to tell me things," she said. "Yes." "Not tonight," she added. "Tonight I am full." "I know." "Stop saying that." "Saying what?" "That you know. You do not know me. You said so yourself." A pause. He looked at the fire. She looked at him looking at the fire. "You are right," he said. "I apologize." She had not expected an apology. It landed differently than she would have predicted. Not a power move, not strategic, just correction, the way honest people correct themselves when they have gotten something wrong. She sat down on the stone hearth. Her heels had been killing her for the last hour, she realized only now, and she reached down and undid the straps and set them aside, and the cold of the stone came through her dress, and she did not care at all. The fire was right there. He looked at her feet. "You were wearing heels this whole time," he said. "I wear heels to pack ceremonies. It is a thing." "Are you?" "I am fine," she said. "They are just heels. I am fine." She felt him decide not to say whatever he had been about to say next. The restraint was visible in him, the choosing not to, and she noted that with the part of her brain that noted things for later. He sat down, not on the hearth, on the floor nearby. She looked at him, an alpha king, sitting on the floor next to a stone hearth, next to a woman he had spoken to for the first time 90 minutes ago, because she had sat on the floor and he had made a calculation about levels. She thought about that for a minute. Then she said, "What do you do when everything goes wrong on the same night?" "What do you mean?" "I mean," she looked at her hands, "the math tonight. 2 bonds, 1 rejection, 1 arrival, 1 too many feelings for a person to hold at one time." He was quiet for a moment. "I do not know what I would do," he said. "That is honest." "What do you usually do when things go wrong?" "I handle it." "What does that mean?" He thought about it. Actually thought, visibly, which was not a thing men with that much power tended to do in her experience. They usually had the answer ready, polished, the kind of answer that comes from never having to sit with a question long enough to really look at it. "It means I make the next decision," he said. "Whatever the next decision is, even if it is small, something to move, something to do, a direction, forward is forward." She looked at the fire. "Forward is forward," she repeated. "It is not wisdom, it is just what I have got." "No," she said. "It is actually," she stopped, started again. "It is not nothing. That is not nothing." The fire made the sounds fire makes, the settling, the small collapses, the occasional hiss of something in the wood, meeting heat and objecting. Outside, somewhere, a night bird, the particular dark of a territory where you know every corner. She felt something in her chest slowly start to let go of its grip, Not the bond, not yet. That was going to take its own time, and she was at peace with that. But the held breath, the months, years, of having her jaw clenched against the weight of everything she had filed in that drawer. Not all of it, just a small piece of it, just enough to breathe a little differently. "I do not trust easily," she said. "I know," he caught himself. I do not know that. I assume it, from what I have seen tonight. That is not the same thing." She looked at him sideways. "Better," she said. He nodded once, accepting the correction. "Part 6, she asked him, at some point late in the night when the fire had burned lower and neither of them had moved to add more wood because neither of them wanted to be the one to stand up and break whatever this quiet was. She asked him what 7 territories felt like. "Heavy," he said. "That is a very honest answer. It is the only one I have got for that question." She pulled her knees up to her chest. The dress was not designed for this posture, and she was aware of that and did not care. "Does it get easier, the weight of things?" He turned his head to look at her directly. "Some things, the ones you make peace with, the ones you keep carrying, no, but you get stronger. Sometimes it is the same effect." She thought about her drawer, about everything in it, about 15-year-old her deciding to file things instead of fall apart, and how that decision had never stopped feeling like both the best and worst thing she had ever chosen. "I have a drawer," she said. He looked confused. She almost smiled for real this time. "Not a real one. It is what I call it, in my head, the place where I put things I cannot deal with yet. I have been putting things there since I was 15. He was quiet for a moment. "That is very organized of you," he said. She did laugh then. It came out a little ragged at the edges, the kind of laugh that has had too many things pressed up against it for too long. But it was real. It was absolutely real. "Shut up," she said. "I am serious. Most people just leave it in the middle of the floor, trip over it, you file it. It is not a system," she said. "It is a coping mechanism. Those are not mutually exclusive." She looked at him. He was watching her with that expression that she still did not have a full name for, the one that had been living in his eyes since he first looked at her on those steps, careful and certain at the same time, like a man who has identified a direction and is very aware that the direction is going to require more from him than any direction has before. "You are going to want to talk," she said. "Eventually, about the bond, about what this means, about all the logistics of who I am and who you are, and how none of those things make obvious sense next to each other." "Yes," he said. "Not tonight. Whenever you are ready." "That could be a while. I have been waiting 3 days in a territory that is not mine to be in the same room as you," he said. "I think I am established as capable of patience." She looked at the fire. "The first bond," she said. "Drake's?" She stopped. Started over. "It does not go away quickly. I want you to know that. Whatever happens from here, it is going to be something I carry for a while, and I will not always be good at carrying it quietly." "I know," he said, and then immediately, I believe that. I believe you." "Better," she said again. "I will keep working on it." Another quiet. The fire made its sounds. Outside, very far away, she heard something in the territory shift. A sound she had known all her life, the nighttime sound of a pack that does not know it is making any noise at all. Just wolves, just the low background hum of 100 different lives going on in their small individual ways in the dark. She had been part of that hum for 22 years. She wondered what it was going to sound like from wherever she ended up. She decided that was a drawer question. Not tonight. Part 7. The morning after. She woke up on the couch with someone's coat over her, which was not hers, and was very warm, and smelled like the specific combination of pine and cold air and that unnamed thing her wolf kept trying to classify. She lay there for a moment, eyes not yet open, doing the inventory that she always did. Where am I? What happened? What do I need to carry today? Old habit. Old, automatic, efficient habit. What she needed to carry today was a rejection that was still living in her chest, like a slowly cooling coal. A second bond that was the opposite of cooling, that was warm and insistent and new and terrifying in a way that was entirely different from the first one. A man she did not know in the next room, a pack that had watched every second of last night and was currently doing what packs do with a good story, which is tell it to every person they know as fast as possible. She opened her eyes. The fire had gone down to its last red embers. The window showed pale early light, the kind that does not commit to morning yet, just suggests it. She heard him before she saw him. Movement in what she assumed was the kitchen. Then the smell of something. Coffee, she thought. And then, he has people here, and someone has made coffee. She sat up, ran her hands through what had been her hair the night before, and was now something significantly less organized, found her heels on the floor where she had left them, and looked at them for a moment. Put them on anyway, because she was not going to walk into whatever came next barefoot. She walked into the kitchen. He was standing at the counter with a coffee cup, and he had, she noticed, taken off his coat at some point, which meant he was in the dark shirt he had been wearing underneath it, and his hair was less perfect than last night, and he looked like someone in the morning, like an actual person, which was its own kind of revelation. "Coffee," he said. "Yes," she said. Not a question. He poured. She took the mug with both hands, which was not a dramatic gesture. It was just cold, and the mug was warm. She stood at the counter across from him, and they drank coffee for a while without talking, which she found out was not uncomfortable, which was notable. "I need to go back," she said. "I know. I need to deal with things, pack things. The fallout from last night is going to be..." She looked into her coffee. "It is going to be a lot. Would it help if I came with you?" She thought about this seriously, about walking back into that pack with the Alpha King beside her, about what that would mean, about Drake Weston and his flat 3 words and the 200 people who had witnessed them, about Brannick and his carefully controlled face, about all of it. "No," she said, "not yet. I need to do that part on my own." He nodded. No pushback, no argument, just acceptance, immediate and without editorial comment. She finished her coffee. "How do I contact you?" she asked. He put something on the counter. A card, simple, just a number. She looked at it, then at him. "The Alpha King has a phone." "I contain multitudes," he said, and she nearly choked on the last of her coffee. She picked up the card, put it in the small pocket at her waist that she had noticed the dress had and that she had never had occasion to use before. She filed it with the same care she filed everything. Deliberate. Present. "I am not promising anything," she said. "I want to be clear about that. I am not asking for promises. I do not know what I am to you yet, or what you are to me. The bond is real, I feel it, but a feeling is not a plan." "No," he agreed. "I need time. I have got time." She looked at him for a long moment, at this man who had been waiting 3 days in her territory for her, who had sat on a floor because she was sitting on a floor, who had corrected himself twice when he had said "I know," and meant it both times. "Caius," she said. First time she had used his name. It sat in her mouth strangely. Too real, too specific. Too much like the beginning of a habit she had not decided to form yet. He went very still. "Thank you," she said, "for last night, for the warmth and the coffee." "That is a very small thing to thank someone for. I know, but it was what I needed. The small things are usually what we actually need." She walked to the door. The morning was cold and bright outside the window. She opened it, turned back once. "I will call," she said. He said nothing, just looked at her across the kitchen with that expression, careful and certain all at once, the one she still did not have a name for. She went. End. 3 things happened that morning, in order. Lena walked back into the pack territory on her own 2 feet, in her almost elegant dress, with her heels in her hand because the gravel was cold and she had stopped caring about impressions at approximately 4 in the morning. She was seen by 6 people before she reached her own door. She looked at every one of them directly. None of them said anything. 2 of them stepped aside. One of them, old Mira from the Eastern Quarter, who had been in this pack longer than anyone and had a way of looking at people that felt like a hand on the shoulder, gave Lena a small nod, slow and deliberate. Lena nodded back. The second thing, she went home and opened the drawer in her kitchen, the real one, the actual wooden one that sticks in the winter, and put the card in there. Not because she was not going to call, because she needed it to have a home first. She needed it to be somewhere she had placed it on purpose, not just carried it. There is a difference. The third thing, she stood in her kitchen, in her not quite elegant dress, with bare feet on the cold floor, and she opened the drawer in her chest, the interior one, the 15-year-old one, the very full one, and she looked at everything in it. She did not take anything out. She was not ready for that. But she looked. She let herself look. And then she closed it. Gently. Not the way she usually closed it. Not the firm push and ignore. But gently. The way you close a door on a room that you are going to come back to. She made fresh toast. She did not burn it. She ate it at her kitchen table looking at the window. Looking at the ordinary morning coming in. The sky going from pale to blue. The trees at the edge of the territory doing the thing trees do in the wind. The bond from Drake Weston was still there, still warm in the wrong way, still the texture of a thing that has been handed back and leaves an impression of itself even after it is gone. She held it. She did not file it. She held it for a while. It hurt. She let it hurt. That was the whole difference. That was the only thing that had changed. She had been walking toward a different version of herself for a while, without knowing it, and this was the night that she had arrived. Not at a destination, just at a place where she could see that there was one. Not fixed, not finished, just forward. Forward is forward. She finished her toast. She got up. She washed the plate. She went and stood in front of her cracked bathroom mirror for the second time in 12 hours, and this time she did not spend 12 minutes on it. She just looked at herself. 22 years old, green dress, hair with opinions, jaw she kept too tight. She let go of the jaw. She went to call her cousin. Some stories do not end. They just reach the part where the person decides to keep going with their eyes open, and then the story keeps going too, quieter now, in the daily and the ordinary and the accumulated weight of days becoming something. That is what this one does. It keeps going. The card sits in the kitchen drawer. The number on it does not dial itself. She is going to have to make that decision, and she is the kind of person who makes decisions deliberately, which means she has to sit with it first, and sitting with things is something she is learning, slowly, imperfectly, one deliberate breath at a time, to do without the drawer as the immediate answer. She will call on a Tuesday, for no reason except that Tuesday comes, and she wakes up that morning and looks at the window and thinks, today. For no reason except that sometimes the decision makes itself when the time is right, and you have been patient enough to wait for it. She will call on a Tuesday, and he will answer on the first ring, and the first thing she will say is, I told you I would call. And the first thing he will say is, I know, and this time she will not correct him.